This is Anos, a disrespectful demon king who got reincarnated and immediately started violating everyone with a smug smile.
Go to hell!
Hard pass.
Bro finishes his enemies just by blinking, gaslights his haters into submission, and somehow built a cult of fangirls worshipping his every move. In the old days, some overpowered demon king wiped out humans and even killed the gods. But then he decided to pull a self-sacrifice move to bring peace, like some misunderstood anime villain. On the entrance exam day, some nervous girl is walking around like she doesn't belong, then she gets smacked, dropping her letter because apparently she can't hold on to things. Some other dude picks it up, reads her name, Misha Necron, while her parents act like embarrassing background characters, cheering her on as if she's the main star of this tragic circus. They finally get to the entrance, and the dude introduces himself as Anos Voldigod. Some pompous idiot shows up to act tough. Anos ignores him, because why waste energy on a fool? But the fool, who introduces himself as Zeepy's Indu, a so-called noble, just has to flex by throwing some weak fire magic. Too bad for him, Anos just sighs, and the flames vanish like they never existed. So Anos basically tells him his flames were so weak, he could just blow them out like a birthday candle. He then waltzes past him because he has better things to do. Inside the academy, some official announces the practical exam. Apparently, the first phase is a duel, and whoever loses gets thrown out, because that's a fair and logical way to test students. Anos gets paired with none other than the same waste of space.
Well, looks like we meet again.
Zeepy's. But this time, the idiot is wearing some anti-demonic armor that supposedly blocks magic. Suddenly, his confidence skyrockets, and he pulls out a flaming sword that's been in his family for generations, bragging that it boosts his power. But Anos, being the king of sarcasm, points out that a power-up is meaningless if the user is already trash. Then he casually blows out the flames again, making everyone gasp in shock. Feeling extra bored, Anos announces that he won't move or use magic to beat him. Zeppes thinks he's bluffing, but then, out of nowhere, his organs start exploding like he's being microwaved from the inside. The moron can't process what's happening, so Anos kindly explains that he's just using his heartbeat to shatter his insides. Zeepes drops to his knees, refusing to surrender because apparently, brain damage runs in his family. Anos steps on him for good measure, but the fool still won't give up, so Anos snaps his fingers and obliterates him into nothingness. Then, realizing he might have overdone it, he resurrects him immediately, telling him to surrender. Instead of taking the hint, Zeepes starts insulting him, so Anos kills him again, then revives him, repeating the process hundreds of times while everyone else watches in pure terror. Anos, fully prepared to delete this clown from existence again, finally gets him to beg for mercy. The fight ends, but before Anos can enjoy his victory, some stuffy officials start scolding him for disrespecting royalty. The next phase is some magical power evaluation, where Misha scores impressively, but when Anos takes the test, his power is so ridiculous that the crystal just gives up on life and shatters. Next, they take some aptitude test about the Demon King's history, but Anos finds it laughably easy. The day finally ends, and outside the academy, Anos finds Misha waiting for him. He invites her to celebrate at his house, and she agrees. Instead of walking like normal people, he just teleports. His mother, the ultimate embarrassing parent, gushes over him passing the exam, despite him being only a month old. He introduces Misha, and his mother has a full meltdown, while his dad is just proud, thinking his son already snagged a girlfriend. During dinner, his mother asks Misha what she likes about Anos, and she, being as blind as everyone else, calls him kind just because he picked up her letter. His mother nearly explodes from happiness and rushes off to make more food, fully convinced that her baby boy is a romantic prodigy. Later, Anos walks Misha home and asks about her father, but she reveals that she doesn't even know her parents and that the guy at the academy is just her guardian. The moment is slightly emotional, but then, because this world doesn't allow peaceful conversations, some ridiculous magic activates around them, and suddenly, an arena appears out of nowhere. Enter Leorgindu, the even dumber older brother of Zeppes, showing up for revenge. He grabs his own brother by the neck and electrocutes him to death, because why not add family betrayal to the list of dysfunction? He then starts preaching about their noble lineage, acting like it means anything, but Anos shuts him down, saying power is all that matters. Leorg gets triggered and summons his minions to attack. Too bad for them, Anos casually interferes with their magic, causing their own spells to explode in their faces like malfunctioning fireworks. Leorg, the intellectual genius, still doesn't get it, so Anos explains that he just made their magic go berserk. Leorg doubles down and casts some forbidden spell that only royalty is supposed to use. The entire place is consumed by magic, but of course, Anos stands there completely unharmed. He recognizes the spell as origin magic, which borrows the Demon King's power, but since he is the Demon King, the spell does absolutely nothing. Feeling a rare moment of generosity, Anos resurrects Zipes, but this time as a zombie. Zombie Zipes immediately turns on his brother, asking why he killed him, but Leorg, in peak denial, tries to fight him off, only to realize that his attacks are useless. Anos helpfully explains that zombies get stronger the more they hate the one who killed them, and the only way to stop it is for Leorg to acknowledge his brother and remember their happy moments together. But since emotional intelligence isn't a thing in this family, Leorg refuses, and Zipes lunges at him. Right before impact, Leorg finally screams his brother's name, remembering their childhood moments, but it's too little, too late. Everything explodes, and they both get obliterated. Anos erases the entire battlefield from existence and protects Misha in the process. The remaining idiots, finally realizing they messed with the wrong person, ask who he is, and Anos, just to flex one last time, reveals that he's the true Demon King of Tyranny. Back in the mythical era, this absolute clown Anos stands before the so-called hero, who is just as dense as the rest of humanity. Anos tells him that stabbing him won't end the war, because humans are too stupid to stop fighting, and will just find another enemy to blame for their problems. But the hero is too busy believing in fairy tales, thinking humans are somehow noble. Anos, tired of this nonsense, offers to create a barrier between their dimensions, saying he will use his own magical energy. The hero, still lost in his fantasy, decides to trust him, and they begin the ritual. The hero stabs him in the heart, hoping they can be friends in the next life. A huge beam of light shoots out, magic covers everything, and the barrier between realms is formed. Fast forward 2,000 years, Anos wakes up to see his new parents, who are about to name him, but this arrogant reincarnated brat tells them his name himself. On his first day at school, Anos immediately proves he's a certified idiot by being the only one to fail the knowledge exam. Misha, the only person willing to tolerate him, tells him this, and he wonders how that's possible, as if he isn't just another overconfident moron. He asks her about the Demon King, but she says she isn't allowed to talk about him. She gets interrupted as some random girl struts past them, probably thinking she's the main character. The teacher, Amelia, shows the class a spell and tells them they'll have a team duel. She asks them to pick team captains, and of course, Anos, being the self-absorbed fool he is, tries to volunteer. But Amelia immediately shuts him down, but Anos, being a show-off, casually walks up to the magic circle and points out that it's flawed. With a tiny adjustment, he doubles its power, shocking everyone, because apparently no one here has basic intelligence. Amelia, probably regretting opening her mouth, lets him become a candidate. He sits down while she tells the leaders to introduce themselves. Sasha, the girl from before, stands up and announces her name like she's the most important person in the room. Misha reveals that Sasha is her sister. When it's Anos' turn, he introduces himself and bluntly tells everyone that their beloved Demon King is a fraud. Meanwhile, Sasha is drowning in attention as everyone scrambles to be on her team. She walks up to Anos, thinking she's about to humiliate him because he only has Misha on his team. She calls Misha a soulless doll, proving she's not only arrogant but also blind to reality. Anos, tired of the stupidity, tells her she lacks knowledge. She gets mad and decides to use her Eye of Destruction to punish him. The class panics, but Anos, as always, is unimpressed. Her attack does nothing because he has his own Eye of Destruction, and unlike her, he actually knows how to use it. He tells her to stop underestimating him, and for some reason, invites her to join his team. She refuses, saying she doesn't consider Misha her sister, further proving that she's just the worst. Later, Sasha approaches Anos to make a deal. If she loses, she'll join his team, but if she wins, he has to become her slave. Anos, already knowing he can't lose, accepts because he enjoys flexing on people. Sasha walks away with fake confidence, still struggling to control her powers. A week later, the teams face off in the forest. They form a pact to make their bet official. The match starts, and their goal is to defeat the enemy leader. Sasha's team builds a fortress, while Misha asks Anos about his plan. He says he'll surprise them, which probably means bullying them in the most ridiculous way possible. Misha quickly builds 3 castles, but Sasha, in her infinite wisdom, assumes it's an illusion and decides to attack first. Then, they see Anos casually walking toward the castle like he's out for a morning stroll. Sasha gets ready to blast him, but he tells her it won't work. They try using an encryption spell to strategize, but Anos, showing off again, easily breaks it, exposing all their plans. Anos, hearing this nonsense, casually grabs their entire castle and yeets it into the sky. The team is thrown around like ragdolls as he plays catch with their fortress. The castle is obliterated, everyone is injured, but Sasha, stubborn as ever, refuses to give up. Desperate, she suggests using Geo-Graze, the strongest fire magic. Her team combines their power to summon the Geo-Graze cannon and fires it with everything they have. Anos, finally acknowledging their effort, responds by flicking a tiny flame at their spell, completely canceling it. But it tears through everything before obliterating their castle. Sasha, barely standing, watches as Anos appears before her. She asks how he cast Geo-Graze alone, but he reveals that he didn't even bother. He just used Grega, the weakest fire spell. He reminds her of their deal, and she accepts, but she tries to pretend she did it all for Misha. Anos tells her she has beautiful eyes, which is probably the first compliment she's ever received. They go to his house, where his mother immediately assumes he's dating both sisters. His father, ever the optimist, thinks Anos is some kind of romance master. They eat together, and Sasha for once looks happy. After dinner, Anos walks the sisters home and notices they're getting along better. At the door, Sasha, now full of emotions she doesn't understand, stops him to thank him for fixing her relationship with Misha. She says he's the only one who ever challenged her. Then, out of nowhere, she asks what he would do if fate was already decided. Anos, as usual, gives an overconfident answer, saying he'd just change fate itself.
What did you want?
Then awkwardly explains that it was just a friendly gesture. Anos, as cocky as ever, says it was a good gift, making her blush before they part ways for the night. Sasha is talking to Misha about that walking embarrassment called Anos, and she remembers how Misha was always the only one who could look her in the eye without crying like a weakling. She asks for forgiveness, realizing she was a terrible sister, but Misha, being her usual weird self, is fine with it, and they somehow make peace. At the academy, the fraud of a protagonist finds out that Sasha's birthday is tomorrow, and Misha is thinking about what to buy her, as if giving her patience to deal with Anos every day isn't already enough of a gift. She sits at their table, reminding them they are on the same team, and then brings up how her former teammates also want to join them. But Anos, the walking definition of arrogance, already turned them down because he thinks they are useless, which is hilarious coming from someone who should have been thrown away at birth. Misha explains they need more members for the other tests, and Amelia, who loves hearing her own voice, starts talking about how the Demon King is supposed to reincarnate this year. One of the so-called 7 elders is going to teach them a spell, which probably explains why they are as full of themselves as Anos. One of them, Ivis Necron, appears, and Anos, being the walking headache that he is, calls out to him like an attention-starved fool, wondering if he remembers him, revealing that he lost most of his memories from 2,000 years ago. The idiot protagonist, of course, tries to force him to remember, shocking everyone, but then realizes something and lets him go. Ivis, showing the intelligence of a brick wall, just ignores what happened and starts teaching the spell as if this is normal behavior. After class, Anos talks to Ivis, claiming he restored his lost memories, but something is off because the past has apparently been changed. Ivis, proving once again that he's just another clown in this circus, believes that the Demon King is some guy named Avos Dilhevia, meaning someone rewrote history after Anos died. which honestly sounds like the best decision ever. Ivis, not wanting to admit he's useless, decides to stay neutral because he can't figure out if Anos is lying to steal the Demon King's place. Anos then goes to talk to Misha, and he finds her staring at a letter from her guardian like it's a ticking bomb. He asks why she hasn't opened it, and she says she prefers to keep it as a talisman, which makes about as much sense as trusting Anos with a serious conversation. Meanwhile, Sasha is hanging out with some students who question why she's associating with the two losers. She gets mad, uses her eyes of destruction to crack the ground, and storms off like the overdramatic mess she is. In the next class, the teacher tells the students to go into a dungeon and collect magical tools, letting them keep whatever they find for their team. He claims that the best way to win is to go to the lowest level and get the scepter. But Sasha, using basic logic, points out that not even the teachers have reached that level, and that the scepter might not even exist. But of course, Anos, the king of nonsense, just insists he will find it, calling the place his castle. They go deeper into the dungeon and see that the other students already dealt with the monsters, which is great because watching Anos pretend to struggle would have been painful. He suggests that Misha pick something from the treasure room as a present for Sasha, and then asks if she wants something too, acting like he's some kind of generous ruler. She tells him that her birthday is the same as Sasha's, which means they are actually twins. But honestly, at this point, nothing makes sense anymore. Anos then claims they have arrived, but the others see a dead end. Sasha tries using magic to see through the wall, but Anos, the ever-annoying genius, says there are countermeasures in place before breaking the wall with brute force, revealing a hidden corridor. They enter a secret garden, and Anos starts rambling about how it was once used for activating magic circles but is now different from 2,000 years ago, because somehow, everything has to be about his tragic, overhyped past. They finally reach the treasure room, and Misha notices that it has anti-magic protection. But of course, Anos just walks up and smashes it open, because why bother with logic? Inside, the girls see that the scepter actually exists, shocking Sasha, while Anos takes Misha to another room to pick a present for Sasha. She chooses a phoenix cloak, thinking it will suit her, proving once again that she is the only person in this group with a shred of common sense. They return, and Misha gives the present to Sasha, who decides to try it on, and demands that Anos leave so she can change, which is the smartest thing anyone has done so far.
Huh? You're coming out already?
But moments later, he finds out that Sasha has killed Misha, because apparently, today wasn't dramatic enough. Sasha starts gloating, talking about how men always let their guard down after a kiss, which just proves she spends too much time around idiots. Anos, however, immediately assumes it's an act. She then revokes their pact, which surprises even him because he thought it was impossible, which is hilarious since everything about him is impossible. He sees that Misha is still alive and realizes Sasha is lying, but she just laughs and says Misha is just a doll created to be used by her, which is probably the most accurate thing said in this whole story. She then casts a spell on Misha and threatens to end her life if Anos tries anything, but the minute she tries to fly away, Anos catches her like the annoying gnat he is. Misha's wound disappears. Anos reveals that he healed Misha the moment he walked in. He then starts over-analyzing Sasha, saying that her eyes of destruction only activate when she's emotional, but they didn't light up when Misha wished her a happy birthday. Misha begs him to forgive her, and he does because he enjoys pretending to be a merciful king. Misha then tries to help Sasha, but Sasha grabs the scepter and flies away because running away from this nonsense is the only logical choice. So she reveals that she isn't a magical doll, but will actually disappear at midnight, meaning all this drama was completely pointless. Anos stands there like he owns the world, and Misha, the sad little copy, explains that she's just a cheap knockoff of Sasha. The fool finally realizes that Sasha broke the Z-Pact because she technically made it with herself. Apparently, Ivis, the genius scientist of bad ideas, created Misha by splitting Sasha in two, but of course, the spell comes with an expiration date. In 15 years, Misha will fuse back with Sasha whether she likes it or not. Anos, always acting like he has all the answers, immediately figures out the plan. Boosts Sasha's magic by treating Misha like a temporary energy drink. Meanwhile, Misha, the ignored background character of her own life, says everyone acted like she didn't exist, but she's happy because Anos was nice enough to acknowledge her presence. She calls it a miracle, which is hilarious because all he did was speak to her. Anos, feeling generous, calls her an idiot and tells her to stop being pathetic and just live her life. Meanwhile, Sasha is trapped in a room with no doors. Anos appears behind her like a horror movie villain and tells her that Misha wants to make peace. Misha, hoping for a touching moment, asks if Sasha hates her. Sasha, as always, ignores her existence and instead suggests another ridiculous challenge. She'll answer questions only if Anos can use the magic circle she creates. He plays along, letting her have her moment, and she draws 2 magic circles, claiming she invented the spells herself. She tells him he only needs to activate 1. Anos, being Anos, instantly figures out that this is a setup. She plans to fail on purpose, but he goes ahead and activates the circle anyway. With no choice left, Sasha finally starts answering Misha's questions. She remembers their childhood, a time when she had creepy, cursed eyes that scared everyone. Misha, on the other hand, was ignored completely, like a misplaced background prop. Realizing how unfair it all was, Sasha spent years researching spells to change Misha's fate. Now, the spell is activating, and she reveals her master plan. Switch places with Misha, so Misha becomes the real body while Sasha becomes the afterthought. Of course, the only way for the spell to work is if Misha actively rejects Sasha, which is why Sasha was acting like a villain this whole time. But Misha, being the pure-hearted fool she is, says she actually loves Sasha.
I love how awkward you are, you know that?
Sasha, now having an emotional breakdown, activates the spell anyway, ready to disappear into nothingness. But the spell does absolutely nothing. Misha refuses to reject her, which means the plan is officially a failure. Sasha, crying like a mess, tells Anos she has no regrets because she's been lucky enough to experience 2 miracles. But Anos, never satisfied with anything, tells her the real miracle hasn't even started yet. He claims there's a way to keep both of them alive, as if he wasn't just watching them emotionally destroy themselves 5 seconds ago. Just change the past, obviously. According to his flawless logic, Misha and Sasha used to be 2 separate beings, so if they go back in time to when the fusion spell first happened, they can trick the spell into making them true twins instead of merging them. Before they can even start, Ivis, the guy who just loves making terrible life choices, smashes through the ceiling and stabs Anos right through the chest, thinking he's doing something important. He claims he's stopping Sasha from becoming the perfect vessel for his mysterious master's return. He yanks out the blade and throws it back, pinning Ivis against the wall like a bug. He's annoyed now because he doesn't have time for this nonsense, and he decides to activate his time travel spell. But of course, things can't be that easy. Just as the spell begins, the literal guardian god of time crashes the party, declaring that he's here to punish them for daring to mess with the timeline. He casually heals Ivis by rewinding time and then blesses him with the power of time itself, making him even more annoying. Ivis, now supercharged, gets back up and immediately attacks Anos, stabbing him from behind like a coward. The girls, witnessing this disaster, watch Anos vanish. Ivis starts bragging about his newfound power, but Anos just reappears behind him like nothing happened. Ivis, utterly confused, demands an explanation, but Anos simply reminds him that he's immortal, as if that's normal. Ivis, still refusing to admit defeat, decides to play his final card and stops time completely. It has zero effect on Anos, because nothing ever works on him. Ivis, now officially out of ideas, tries one last desperate charge, but Anos just flicks him away with barriers, forcing him to retreat like the useless minion he is. Anos, ever the self-proclaimed hero, tells the girls they don't need to worry anymore because he'll crush any obstacle in their way. As he speaks, the spell finally completes. Sasha and Misha, now glowing like human light bulbs, call out to him because they finally fully believe in his nonsense. The time-traveling plan works, and they find their past selves. With all 4 versions of them merging, the spell succeeds. Ivis, the never-ending disappointment, tries to run for his life, but Anos effortlessly catches him and stabs him in the gut. Ivis realizes he can't heal himself, which means he's finally out of luck. He completely destroys Ivis, leaving no trace behind. With everything settled, Anos casually brings Ivis back to life, because why not? He explains that his sword wiped out the demon and the god that had hijacked Ivis's body. Anos, playing the wise mentor, restores his memories and orders him to keep an eye on the other elders. Sasha and Misha, now fully separate people, return to normal. Anos tells them it's time to leave, since there's still time to ace their exam, as if that's even important after all this. And Misha, she finally decides to read her letter, and Sasha, now full of sisterly love, is relieved that both of them survived. To top it all off, Anos hands Misha an enchanted ice ring, because, surprise, it's also her birthday. Then, in his final act of smugness, he invites them to dinner at his house. Back in the mythical era, the so-called Great Water Spirit shows up trying to act tough, but before Anos can even move, his underling Shin jumps in, volunteering to handle it himself. Shin, being an overachiever, steps forward and in one hit turns the so-called Great Spirit into a puddle of disappointment. Anos, in his usual arrogant way, praises Shin like he's handing out participation trophies, then asks what he wants. Instead of asking for something useful, Shin, who apparently has no hobbies or dreams, just wants permission to reincarnate with Anos so he can continue being his personal servant forever. Before they can discuss how dumb this decision is, the legendary hero Conan arrives. Anos, for once, admits that even he finds this guy annoying to fight, since he's the only person in the world with the magic of 7 sources. Back in the present, Sasha waits for the teacher to announce their scores after they retrieved the scepter. But instead of giving a straight answer, Amelia, the school's resident tyrant, decides to drop a random announcement. Some new transfer student is joining the class, and apparently, he's a sword master. She also casually mentions that the scepter Anos's team worked so hard to find has been stolen, and since they didn't get time to check if it was real, she'll only give them 70 points until they find the culprit. Sasha, whose patience is already at 0, explodes with anger. But the other students, still convinced hybrids like Anos are beneath them, say the scepter was probably fake anyway. Anos, already done with this nonsense, decides to fix the situation himself. He casually pulls the stolen scepter out of some idiot's chest and hands it to Amelia, fully aware that she let the student steal it in the first place. After class, Misa, still in awe of Anos's godlike ability to humiliate people, thanks him and explains that the school is basically run by royal purebloods, while hybrids like them are treated like trash. She mentions that she's part of a guild that wants to unite demons, and she invites Anos to join. She also casually drops that one of the 7 elders is backing them, and they believe Anos is the demon king of tyranny. They go to the guild tower, where they're immediately ambushed by Anos's rabid fangirls, who start losing their minds at the sight of him. Sasha, already regretting her life choices, looks around the tower and notices it's full of pictures of Anos. Misa then drags them to another room to show them a sword, explaining that she's the daughter of a noble demon and a water spirit. Her father, who was too busy being noble to actually raise her, sent her this sword on her 10th birthday. She believes he has the other half, and her dream is for all demons to unite so she can finally meet him. She then asks Anos to join her group, as if he doesn't have better things to do. The next day, the students gather in the arena to try and pull out magic swords from the ground. Predictably, they fail because the swords drain their power. 2 of the demon elders, Goss and Idal, run the class and announce that only the students who manage to pull out their swords will be allowed to participate in the magic sword tournament. Sasha, watching Anos do absolutely nothing, starts thinking maybe he can't pull out a sword at all. To make his point, he casually summons one of the swords to fly to him. One of the elders, impressed that someone in this class isn't completely useless, challenges Anos, but before anything happens, a new student effortlessly lifts a sword. Turns out, this is the transfer student, Rai. Wydal, clearly desperate to show off, tries to fight Rai but gets knocked out instantly. Anos, unimpressed, deals with Gas just as easily. Back in class, Amelia, still trying to enforce her useless rules, points out that royalty can't take orders from a hybrid. Rai, who clearly doesn't care, asks Anos if he can join his team. Anos refuses, because he wants to see if Rai actually has the guts to prove himself first. Instead, he tells Misa to join Rai's team so they can fight in the next group battle. On the day of the competition, Anos leaves the girls to handle the rest of the enemy team while he fights Rai. Misha, now overpowered, builds a castle, and Sasha, realizing her magic is somehow better than before, assumes it's because of the ring. Anos teleports to Rai, who's clearly been waiting for him. Before they can fight, a giant golem appears, because of course, there's always a giant monster involved. Anos quickly figures out that Rai is sharing his power with his team. Meanwhile, Sasha struggles against the golem, so Anos tells her to team up with Misha and use Gyog Gra. Sasha doubts their power, but Misha, who has already accepted that Anos is never wrong, trusts him completely. They activate the spell, fire a cannon, and obliterate the golem. Sasha, still shocked that they actually won, barely has time to react before Misa suddenly attacks her. Back with Anos, Rai is almost at his limit, but he stubbornly keeps going, earning Anos' respect for actually being a challenge. Sasha, realizing she's in trouble, activates her Phoenix Cloak, but Misa, armed with Rai's sword, is confident she can win. Just as the golem is about to attack again, Misha steps in to help, and they combine their fire and ice magic to create an even stronger spell, wiping out both Misa and the golem. They celebrate for a second, but then the ground starts shaking because Anos and Rai's fight is getting out of hand. Anos, not worried at all, says the forest will regenerate anyway, while Rai is too excited to stop. They keep exchanging blows until Rai decides to go all in, attempting a final attack from above. Anos, of course, blocks it with his stick, ending the fight. Rai, now fully convinced he's met Anos before, admits defeat. Anos, thinking Rai looks familiar, casually announces he's the Demon King of Tyranny. Rai, having no reason to doubt him, believes him immediately. Later, Anos returns home, where his mother celebrates his victory. Misa, awkwardly realizing she probably shouldn't be there, is reassured when Anos tells her he's accepted her into the team. After dinner, the girls talk with Anos' parents and discover he's only a month old, which should be concerning, but they just accept it. The next day, Amelia, still clinging to her authority, announces that Anos and Rai will represent the class in the Magic Sword Tournament, so they need to get a weapon before the event. This idiot is excited for a rematch like he actually stands a chance, but the actual Demon King sees through the nonsense because it's obvious the royalty is only recruiting him to make sure he doesn't win. Before he can roast them for their pathetic plan, Misa interrupts, saying that some elder who actually has a functioning brain, Melas, starts getting emotional like some dramatic theater kid, talking about how he waited 2,000 years for this. Anos wonders if he even remembers him, but Melas, in his never-ending wisdom, says someone erased parts of his memories. Thankfully, his source still remembers, so he's not completely useless. Anos, not even surprised anymore by the sheer amount of foolishness around him, asks who picked him for the tournament. Melas, proving to be the only one with a brain in this entire mess, says it's obviously the nobility trying to prove hybrids are weak. He advises Anos to just drop out and let Aos reveal himself like a clown in an empty circus. Anos promises to think about it. He goes home, where Misha, the only competent one in this house, reveals she helped his mother prepare dinner. They eat, discuss the tournament, and Anos remembers he still needs a magic sword. Instead of focusing on the tournament, he decides the best way to prepare is by taking Misha on a date as a reward for dinner. They wander through the city, ending up at a magic model shop where Anos realizes Misha is obsessed with tiny houses. She creates a magic model of them eating dinner, planning to give it to Sasha because clearly nothing screams sisterly love like a mini diorama of someone else eating. Anos, being the show-off he is, decides to flex his skills by creating an entire model of the kingdom. The shop owner nearly loses her mind and offers to sell her soul, shop, to buy it from him. But Anos, too cool for money, declines. He decides to be unnecessarily extra and transforms it into a ring, handing it to her so she can always see it. Misha, now one step away from blushing into another dimension, thanks him. They spot a cat cafe and check it out, because why not? Instead of getting some wholesome cat content, a weird cat shows up and starts talking like it pays taxes. Misha realizes it's Ivis, who reports that Misa's unification group is being controlled by some unknown puppet master. They have no idea who it is because apparently basic detective work is beyond them. Ivis also mentions a shady hospital worker, but isn't sure if they're connected, so Anos tells him to keep an eye on Melas during the Magic Sword Tournament. They check out the hospital, which looks suspiciously normal, and then Ray appears out of nowhere. Anos asks what he's doing there, and Ray, acting like the world's most suspicious man, says he's visiting his mother. Anos, being his usual all-powerful self, offers to heal her because curing diseases is basically a casual hobby for him. But Ray brushes it off and walks in. The tournament day arrives, and Ivas tells Anos the elders running this circus are planning to trap him. Anos considers skipping the event just to mess with them, hoping AOS will crawl out of his hiding hole. The tournament begins, and when Anos doesn't show up, the peanut gallery starts trash-talking him, assuming he gave up. His mother, proving once again that she's more badass than half the demons here, starts screaming at the crowd that her son is going to be the Demon King. Meanwhile, his father sneaks up in the tunnel, proudly presenting a magic sword he forged for him. He claims Anos's victory will prove that even a hybrid can become the Demon King, which is nice, but Anos is already 10 steps ahead. Realizing he has nothing to worry about and wanting to make his parents happy, he finally jumps into the arena. He apologizes to his opponent for wasting his time, then promises to finish the fight in 1 minute like he's ordering fast food. The poor fool charges in, but Anos dodges effortlessly, while his fan club starts singing his praises like they're at a cult gathering. Enraged by the sheer disrespect, his opponent tries a secret technique, which, of course, does absolutely nothing. Anos, done with the nonsense, lightly swings his sword, generating a wind blast that shatters his opponent's weapon and his dreams. Anos wins in exactly 1 minute, casually flexing his precision. Amelia, proving she's incapable of handling reality, is furious because Anos just obliterated her brother's pride. Later, Anos and Misa chill in the waiting room, watching Ray win his match. He then joins them, but instead of celebrating, he suddenly declares his loyalty to the royal faction and attacks Anos. Anos, completely unfazed, casually catches his attack mid-air, like it's an annoying fly. They were just testing each other, because apparently, that's how friendships work in this universe. Anos notices Ray is wearing a magical collar designed to destroy his source, meaning he's basically a glorified hostage. The day ends, and everyone showers Anos with praise for his victory. His mother, still acting like the most supportive mom in existence, offers to hold on to his sword for him so he can rest. Anos hands it over, and she's surprised by its weight, but vows to protect it with the help of her girl squad. Later, Anos and Misa visit the hospital and meet Ray's mother, who is suffering from some mysterious spiritual disease that even Anos hasn't heard of, which is rare since he usually knows everything. He quickly realizes she's a half-spirit, half-demon like Misa, which makes zero sense because Ray is supposed to be royalty. Anos suspects she might be his foster mother and starts brainstorming how to cure her. Before he can do anything, she wakes up, instantly recognizing Anos and calling him Ray's friend, which is honestly the highest honor in this show. She reveals that Ray made some kind of shady pact to pay for her treatment. When Anos asks about her disease, she explains that spirits exist because of people's belief in them, but half-spirits are extra fragile because their source is weak. She then goes on a whole monologue about Ray, saying he's a good kid who loves swords, but was always sad because he had no real opponents. She drops the bombshell that he was actually happy when Anos wrecked him in their fight. She begs Anos to fight Ray in the tournament again so he can go all out without worrying about her. Anos, being the absolute madman that he is, refuses to accept the standard solution and creates a brand new spell on the spot. He tells Misa to use her source to fuel Ray's mother's spiritual power, warning her that if they mess this up, both of them could be wiped out. He also casually adds that if her source gets depleted, even he can't bring her back. Misa, proving that she has zero self-preservation instincts, agrees without hesitation because she believes in him. The mother of this walking disappointment is walking home with the girls, probably thinking her son is finally making friends instead of embarrassing himself, when suddenly, Amelia shows up like the villain in a bad soap opera. She starts yapping about how the committee should keep the useless brat's sword until the finals, but his mother, apparently still believing in her son's dignity, insists on delivering it herself. Amelia decides to take it by force. The mother refuses, so Amelia does what every entitled maniac does. She attacks. She blasts the poor woman with a spell, knocking her down like she's swatting a fly. The mother, still trying to have faith in the stupidity surrounding her, reminds Amelia that she's attacking her own students. But Amelia doesn't care. To her, hybrids are about as valuable as a used tissue. She's just mad because this dumb goat embarrassed her brother in the tournament, and now she wants revenge. She charges up a dramatic energy blast, clearly trying to overcompensate for something. But the girls, who have the survival instincts of a potato, get back up and keep protecting the mother. They tell her to run, because they're all about noble sacrifices today. But Amelia gets bored of their resilience and fries them like overcooked bacon. The mother sees their charred remains and, instead of running, decides to stand there looking horrified, because that's helpful. Amelia gets ready to finish her off, because at this point, why not? But before she can strike, the useless waste of air finally decides to show up, then heals his mother and revives the crispy remains of the girls, thanking them for being loyal to someone who clearly didn't deserve it. He turns back to Amelia, finally deciding he's not in the mood for mercy. He drags her to the arena like a misbehaving child, stabs her with a sword, and tells her she can live if she recognizes him as the Demon King. Amelia, now fully realizing she messed up, calls him the Demon King, but he doesn't believe her, because why would he? He starts torturing her. He straight up kills her. But then, because he's extra like that, he resurrects her in a new body. He lets her know she's a hybrid now, which is apparently the worst thing in the world for her. She completely loses it and tries to off herself. But surprise, he cursed her so she can't. Meanwhile, Misa, she's casting a spell when Ray shows up, looking confused as ever. He asks what she's doing and realizes she's draining her own life force to save his mother. He tells her she's being an idiot, but she refuses to listen. He sees she's getting weaker, so instead of arguing, he just knocks her out and sets her down gently. His mother, now awake, tells him not to worry about her. She reminisces about how she found him on the streets, and somehow, she's still glad she became his mother. Ray, being the emotionally constipated mess that he is, just listens. Meanwhile, the dumb goat is off being dramatic again. He arrives at the hospital, probably expecting some peace, but instead, he sees Rai walking away like some brooding anime character. The next day, some annoying owl shows up to announce that the finals are about to begin, like anyone needed the reminder. Ray and the dumb goat finally get ready to fight. They slap some spiritual draining bracelets on these two, and some background extra explains that whoever breaks their bracelet loses. The fight begins, and the useless swordsman actually has the nerve to compliment the smug Demon King, as if that is going to make him lose focus. Then, like the drama queen he is, he casually reveals that his bracelet is just for show. This idiot has been playing pretend the whole time, but instead of just finishing things off like a normal person, he goes full tragic hero, breaks his own bracelet, and lets some magical collar stab straight into his source. Turns out he signed a contract with the royal family like a complete moron, and now he is going to die because of it. He admits he cannot heal his mother, so instead of doing something useful, he decides to go out in a blaze of stupidity and fight until he drops. The smug Demon King is not impressed and tells him to focus on the fight instead of making death speeches. They start clashing, moving so fast that the peanut gallery cannot even keep up. The swordsman somehow dodges an attack and even lands a hit on the Demon King's arm. Then they go back to their little dance, slashing and dodging like they are in some dramatic stage play, both taking damage until the Demon King cuts the swordsman, casually deciding that the fight is over. So they both charge at each other one last time. The Demon King loses an arm, but in return, he stabs the swordsman. That is when some random magic circle activates, and before anyone can react, the smug Demon King is transported to another dimension. Finally, the mastermind behind this whole circus makes an appearance. The annoying bird transforms into some creep named Melas, who has apparently been waiting for the perfect moment to attack, as if that is going to make a difference. This fool is all proud of himself because he managed to drain half of the Demon King's magic with the bracelet, but instead of panicking, the Demon King just mocks them for exposing themselves. At the same time, the swordsman, who should be dying, suddenly slashes through the elders, while the Demon King casually freezes time like it is nothing. Melas loses his mind, wondering how the swordsman is still breathing. So the swordsman just straight up explains that the Demon King saved him by shattering the stupid death spell with his last attack. But Melas is still convinced he is winning, so he pulls out his trump card, revealing that he has the swordsman's mother trapped in some magic prison. While Melas is running his mouth, the Demon King pulls off a distraction, giving the swordsman a chance to throw his sword and jump into some portal. But Melas refuses to take an L and summons even more portals, releasing some ridiculous mist that is supposed to be on the same level as the ancient magic that once separated the four realms. He starts attacking with it, completely shattering the Demon King's shield, then smugly explains that he actually stored a piece of the mythical wall to use as a power source. The mist does not let up, attacking non-stop while Melas hides in some so-called impenetrable space. Meanwhile, he tries to pull a cheap trick by opening a portal to attack the swordsman, but the Demon King throws up an anti-magic barrier like it is nothing. The swordsman has already wasted too much energy, and when the Demon King asks if he can still fight, the swordsman just whines about needing a sword. The swordsman rushes in, swinging like a madman, trying to cut through the mist, but his sword immediately shatters, proving once again that he is just here to take up space. The Demon King once again has to bail him out, but now the swordsman has fully accepted that he is useless. Just as he is about to give up completely, his mother starts talking to him from inside her magical prison. She straight up transforms into a sword and tells him to use her power.
After all, you're the strong son that I raised, aren't you?
As you wish.
Now suddenly, he is back in action, cutting through everything in his way like he is actually capable of doing something useful. He finally reaches the gate and launches some massive attack that destroys all the darkness inside, breaking through into Melas's dimension. His mother turns back to normal just to deliver one final speech, telling him she is proud before vanishing into thin air. The swordsman immediately starts crying like a baby, but the Demon King tells him to save his tears for later because there is still work to do. Meanwhile, Melas is having the meltdown of the century, but before he can finish, the Demon King just appears behind him, like it is nothing. Melas thinks he finally has the upper hand and traps him in the mist, assuming he has won, but of course, the Demon King just walks out of it without a scratch. Melas is so shocked that he actually stops attacking for a second, wondering how the Demon King is still alive. That is when the Demon King reveals that all the mist actually did was help him recover all his lost magic. Melas panics and tries to run, but it is too late. The Demon King swings his sword, cutting him even when he dodges. Then he casually explains that his sword can cut through all laws, meaning there is literally nothing Melas can do. Desperate, Melas summons countless portals to attack, but the Demon King shatters them all like they are made of glass. With one final stab, the Demon King wipes out the creature inside Melas, making him return to normal and regain his memories. Back in the arena, Melas admits that he was being controlled by some unknown entity. The Demon King summons two other idiots, realizing that their minds have also been hijacked by some masked freak named Avos Delvia. He tries to revive them. The masked man just vanishes like a coward. Everyone finally returns to normal, confused about what just happened. But then they see the swordsman lying on the ground like a corpse. The Demon King is declared the tournament winner, and of course, everyone starts cheering for him like he has not been flexing his power this whole time. But instead of taking the credit, he dramatically points to his sword and yells that his father is the supreme craftsman, as if anyone cares. The event finally ends, and the Demon King, just to show off even more, brings the swordsman's mother back to life, like it is no big deal. The swordsman reunites with her. The Demon King explains that since she was a sword spirit, he just used magic to spread some rumors, and enough people believed it to bring her back. Then Sasha shows up to present him as the tournament champion, hands him some fancy sword, and for some reason, seals the whole thing with a kiss. Anos, the walking ego trip, shows up in the mythical era, trampling over barriers like they are made of tissue paper, while Conan, the clueless hero, gawks at him, probably wondering why fate cursed him with this encounter. Anos, always the self-important one, claims he wants to talk, as if anyone with a brain believes that, and asks Conan if he even wants to stop the war. But before the guy can answer, Commander Juris, the ultimate grudge holder, lunges in, screaming about how Anos could never want peace. The guy is so blinded by vengeance that he sucks power from his troops like some magic parasite, all because demons wiped out his family. But Anos, being Anos, casually punches a hole in his chest like he is popping a balloon, completely unfazed. Instead of finishing the conversation, Anos tells Conan to visit his castle before teleporting away, probably just to be dramatic. Conan rushes to check on Jurga, who vows revenge in the next life like some Saturday morning cartoon villain. Meanwhile, back at the Demon King Academy, the class gets a new teacher, Menno, because Amelia pulled a disappearing act. Menno announces an exchange trip to the human realm in 3 weeks, probably the worst idea in history, and the students, who at least have a shred of survival instinct, wonder if it's even safe. She explains that they will compete using human army magic, which lets troops hand their power to the leader, making Anos decide to train his minions like he is some kind of overpowered gym instructor. He beats them down without mercy, as expected, while Misha tries to help Ray by making an ice sword, which Anos instantly shatters before slamming Ray into the ground so hard he probably left a crater. While the poor souls continue their suffering, Melheis shows up to tell Anos that Gas and Idol have been resurrected, but their memories were wiped because, of course, nothing can ever be simple. Melheis, probably the only one with sense, warns Anos not to trust the human realm, but Anos, being too arrogant to care, shrugs it off. Later, Anos takes Ray to his personal weapon stash, because of course he has one, letting him pick a sword that belonged to some ancient warrior, Shen, because Anos has a suspicion that Ray might be his reincarnation, which would explain why he is slightly less useless than the others. Days later, the exchange trip is announced, and the group is supposed to reach the human capital in 10 days. But Anos, incapable of understanding the concept of normal travel, just teleports everyone there instantly, sucking the fun out of the trip. The others, now used to his nonsense, just complain about how he ruins everything. So he decides to wander around the city and drags Sasha along with him. Walking through the streets, Anos notices the humans living in peace, which is probably a bad sign, and when they arrive at the Hero Academy, a random girl jumps out and starts interrogating them. Realizing they are from the Demon King Academy, she introduces herself as Eleanor, a third-year student, and just when it looks like she might be bearable, she gets overly excited when Anos asks about the hero's legend. She starts showing them around, and they come across a painting of Conan, then head to the library, where she pulls out a book filled with human propaganda, claiming that the hero defeated the Demon King of Tyranny. Sasha, proving she has at least half a brain, immediately loses it, because the actual story is that the Demon King sacrificed himself for peace, not that some human defeated him. Anos, however, just shrugs, like this doesn't bother him. He asks about the so-called Demon King and their version of events, and Eleanor drops the name Avos de la Via, proving that humans have been lied to for generations. Anos then asks about Conan's reincarnation. Before the stupidity can sink in, a student shows up, acting all smug, saying the Demon King could never have sacrificed himself for peace. This guy, who introduces himself as Ledriano, is apparently the first reincarnation of Conan, or at least he thinks he is. Another student, Laos, struts in and says he got Conan's third source, but Anos, unimpressed, can already tell these guys are fakes. Laos, and immediately tries to show off with a special move, only to get wiped out in a second, throwing a tantrum when he realizes he is completely outclassed. Ledriano, proving he has at least some common sense, tells him to calm down and apologizes, while Eleanor, still weirdly obsessed with Anos, says she is impressed and asks if he is reincarnated. Anos, never humble, confirms it, and says he is looking for the real Conan. But before he can leave, Eleanor drops another infobomb, saying that Conan no longer exists, and even if his source returns, he won't be the same hero Anos remembers. 10 days later, the rest of the Demon King Academy students finally arrive in the city, only to find that Anos has been there the whole time. A group of seniors, led by some nobody named Rivest, marches up to Anos, accusing him of cheating his way there, as if he needs to cheat. The first day of the exchange begins with a guy named Diego, the Hero Academy's director, showing up to teach the students how to recreate objects, which is just fancy talk for using magic to fix broken junk. He decides to make this a competition, and picks Ledriano to represent the humans, while Meno chooses Rivest, which is a mistake from the start. Ledriano, eager to show off, strengthens a rusty sword and destroys a statue, making the crowd lose their minds. Rivest, in an attempt to save face, tries a monster transformation spell, but of course it fails spectacularly. When he tries again, something obviously goes wrong, and Ledriano, being the arrogant idiot he is, takes the opportunity to mock the entire Demon King Academy. But Anos, already knowing this test is rigged, casually points out that humans sealed demonic magic. Without even breaking a sweat, he shatters the spell, and instantly, Rivest's magic actually works, turning a rat into a monster and scaring everyone half to death. Before the situation gets out of control, Anos makes the monster disappear and, just for fun, creates a sacred sword out of nowhere, causing Diego's brain to short-circuit because humans believe demons can't use sacred magic. Later that night, Laos finds Anos and starts rambling about how the books don't explain the hero's death, but humans believe the Demon King will return, and Conan will appear to defeat him again. Anos, now fully convinced that the human realm is gearing up for war, starts thinking about the hero's sacred sword, the only weapon that could actually threaten him. Sasha and Misha pop up, dragging him off to a festival, because why not? At the festival, they run into Ray, who is hanging out with Misa, and, in a rare moment of romance, gives her a shell necklace. The next day, the girls start acting like they have never seen a necklace before, poking at it like it is some kind of alien artifact. Anos, who can never just say something normally, tells them some ancient sob story about a couple that split a shell in half 2,000 years ago to find each other after reincarnation, as if that nonsense actually worked. The group finally reaches the beach for the competition, but Anos, in his usual arrogance, immediately notices Eleanor is missing. Before anyone can care, Diego, the human windbag, announces the competition will be an underwater fight, and smugly warns them not to lose too quickly since he is sending his so-called elite class. The demon seniors, desperate for some relevance, beg Menno to let them compete, and Anos, as always, offers to fight because he clearly does not know what exchange program means. Rivest, the walking mistake, insists that only nobles should fight to prove their worth, as if anyone cares. As the exam starts, Menno, for some reason, tries to defend Rivest, saying he is a kind person who admires the Demon King, which is a nice way of saying he is a fanboy with no talent. The students quickly realize they cannot sense the enemy's power, and before their half-functioning brains can figure it out, the humans ambush them. One of the demons, probably the first to wake up that morning, notices that their spells are being cancelled, and the heroes, because they have the emotional maturity of children, laugh at them. Sasha, being one of the few with working brain cells, notices something is wrong, and Anos, who always has to be dramatic, reveals the shocking truth. Humans mixed sacred water into the lake to boost their power and weaken demons, proving once again that they cannot win without cheating. Meanwhile, Rivest, still pretending he has a plan, hears that the heroes are approaching the castle and decides to activate some overhyped spell. The heroes block it effortlessly and then activate a combined spell that completely wipes out the castle. One of them, feeling extra special, summons a sacred sword and cuts through the demons like they are made of paper. Menno, finally realizing that trusting Rivest was a mistake, orders Diego to stop the exam, but Diego, being the insufferable clown he is, refuses. Anos, bored with the stupidity, steps in and casually rescues his useless seniors from the water. Since they were hit by a sacred sword, Menno tries to heal them, but of course it does not work, proving once again that the demon nobility is useless. Diego, still trying to act innocent, says it is not his fault, and Anos, because he cannot go a single day without showing off, says he can heal them. Rivest, too proud to accept help despite getting wrecked, pushes him away, but Anos, never missing an opportunity to be condescending, reminds him that if a noble dies, Menno will get fired. Rivest, finally breaking down, admits he is weak, which was obvious to everyone from the start, and begs Anos to crush the Hero Academy, and then, like the overpowered show-off he is, challenges the heroes to a second round. The heroes, confident in their dumb little trick, accept without realizing they are walking into a disaster. Anos casts his over-the-top magic and dries up the entire lake like he just pulled the plug on a bathtub. Diego, looking like his entire life just crumbled, cannot believe it, but the heroes, still clinging to hope, decide to continue. They follow Anos to the dry lake, and Ledriano, in full denial mode, reassures Diego that they still have a secret weapon. The duel begins, and Anos, just for fun, uses his magic again, but the heroes create a barrier to block the attack, feeling all proud of themselves. Suddenly, some mysterious girl shows up and shatters the spell like it was made of glass. Anos, for once, actually looks interested, and starts wondering if she is another reincarnation of Conan, because apparently reincarnations are just lying around like trash. She stays silent, letting Ledriano introduce her as Zashia, the fourth source bearer and the light sword wielder, which basically means she is stronger than the other clowns in his group. The heroes attack, but Anos, always ready to humiliate people, casually releases his energy and knocks them all down like bowling pins. Laos, the biggest sore loser in the room, gets up, burning with frustration, but before he can embarrass himself further, Sasha steps in and declares herself his new opponent. Meanwhile, Ray faces off against the hero with the sacred sword. Laos, still believing he has a chance, launches an attack at Sasha, but she dodges like he is moving in slow motion. In the process, she somehow steals his sacred amulet without him noticing, proving that he is both weak and stupid. He realizes it too late and, in a panic, charges at her, summoning his sword to get it back. Sasha, amused by how pathetic he is, keeps dodging until suddenly she cannot move. She realizes she is caught inside some magical barrier, and Laos, thinking he has won, prepares to land the final hit. Before he can do anything, his body betrays him, and he collapses like a sack of bricks. As he lies on the ground, completely humiliated, he finally understands what happened. Sasha poisoned his amulet, proving once again that he should never have been born.
So you're going on a timeout!
Meanwhile, somewhere else, another hero reincarnation finally decides to show up, introducing himself as Hein. Ray drops into his own barrier like an idiot, summons his swords, and immediately gets his arm chopped off. He stares like he just discovered gravity, wondering how Rai managed to hit him inside the barrier. Rai, bored of his nonsense, steals one of Hein's swords, stabs it into the ground, and sends Hein flying like a rag doll. Rai walks up and ends the fight like it's nothing. Meanwhile, Ano stands over Ledriano's body, but he is not fooled by the cheap acting and tells him to stop faking. Out of nowhere, Zesa tries to ambush Anos, but he blocks her like she is nothing. She swings wildly, trying to land a hit, but he yeets her into the ground. Ledriano, still not learning, rushes in, but Anos picks up Zesa and throws her at him like a human missile. Ledriano, desperate, casts some human spell nonsense, covering the area in light, claiming 10 million people are fueling their power. Zesa rushes at Anos again, smashes through his barrier, but he dodges like it is nothing. Ledriano sees his chance and attacks, but now he cannot break the barrier. It finally hits him. Anos is stronger. Anos, stealing their idea, also borrowed power from his team. His fans start singing, giving him more energy, and he casually blows them away. Ledriano, shocked, blasts Anos with energy, but Anos slaps it back, sending them flying. Ledriano, unable to grasp basic logic, whines about losing despite having 10 million people. Anos, tired of explaining things to idiots, says it is about feelings, not numbers. Suddenly, everyone hears a voice of pure hatred, and the heroes, now fully insane, decide Anos must be erased. Zesa, proving stupidity has no limits, charges Anos with a kamikaze spell, causing a massive explosion. Anos walks out unharmed, and Ledriano looks like he is about to pass out. Zesa, still refusing to learn, attacks again, trapping Anos in an infinite loop. Before things get worse, Eleanor calls Anos to the sanctuary, saying she is the only one who can stop Zeshia. Misha heads to the temple, but gets blasted by Diego, who is still alive for some reason. He rants about demons, stabs her, and reveals the exchange class was a trap. Just as he prepares to destroy her source, Anos appears. Anos heals Misha and tortures Diego until he disappears, but Diego resurrects like a cockroach. Annoyed, Anos pulls out his source, erasing him. He carries Misha to Eleanor, who reveals she is not even human. She is magic itself. This whole mess starts with Anos realizing that some useless experiment of a girl was created with a forbidden spell that turns humans into magic. He figures out that she's the one keeping the barrier up and patching up those pathetic heroes every time they get smacked down. She was running a clown factory, churning out clones of Zez like some cheap magic trick, which is why she kept coming back no matter how many times she got wrecked. Anos doesn't waste time. He shatters the glass with his demonic eyes because apparently even glass fears him. Then, instead of giving her something useful like common sense, he hands her a uniform. She drops the barrier and spills the tea about some miserable excuse for a commander named Jer, who had nothing better to do than sit around and hate demons. He was so scared that humans might move on from their grudge that he built a whole hero academy just to keep the hate alive. Then, because he was extra insane, he split his soul into 2 spells. One lets heroes share power, and the other is this girl who was supposed to be his legacy, but turned out to be a defective model since she didn't inherit his irrational rage. Then she starts talking about how, 2,000 years ago, Conan went off script, and his own people stabbed him in the back like a bunch of spineless cowards. She admits she's been waiting for Anos and begs him to delete her from existence because she's sick of being part of Jerga's madness. Before Anos can even decide, some crusty leftover piece of Diego shows up, because apparently these heroes don't know when to stay dead. Anos is ready to handle business, but then the other 3 demon emperors burst in like uninvited guests at a party, waving around Conan's sacred sword. Diego, thinking he still has a chance, tries to blast them, but Hero casually summons a black hole to suck up all the pathetic humans like a vacuum cleaner. Meanwhile, Hero decides he's the real demon king of tyranny, so Anos swings at him, but this guy just slices through it and vanishes like a cheap magician. Next thing, Diego is riling up the city, screaming about how the demon king of tyranny is back and declaring war like it's a medieval soap opera. At the same time, some ancient emperors show up in the demon realm, making speeches about exterminating humans, and suddenly, everyone's celebrating like it's Demon Christmas. In the tower, Anos meets with his old demon buddies, who tell him that the demon armies are already marching like they have nothing better to do. His squad rolls up, swearing loyalty like he's handing out VIP passes, and he tells them they're leaving at dawn. Meanwhile, Misa, acting like she's in a romance drama, gets all emotional with Ray, who gives her half a necklace and promises to come back, as if that's ever worked out for anyone. The next day, Anos hands out orders while Diego gathers his army, and the Shadow Knights get ready for war. Sasha and Misha show up to block their path, while Ray casually wipes out enemies in the forest like he's doing chores. Hero, meanwhile, is chilling inside a castle, and Anos tells the elders to handle the other emperors while he goes for Hero. But when he teleports to the castle, Misa calls him and says Ray is missing, while Malaz tells him that the 3 elders got captured. But surprise, their real selves aren't even inside. Turns out, Hero was never even in the castle, and now he's strolling toward the border. A barrier suddenly traps him, and Anos pops up, ready for round 2. Hero pulls out Conan's sacred sword, and the 2 of them charge at each other, causing an explosion. But Anos, being the only one with half a brain, realizes that only Conan can wield that sword. Then Hero takes off his mask, and shocker, this walking disaster is confused about how Anna figured out his big secret, but she tells him he slipped up by mentioning that his shell necklace was one of a kind. A guy who supposedly doesn't know human culture shouldn't know that, which means his memories are intact. Turns out this fool used his 7 sources to control ancient emperors, but one guy, Melaz, stayed free because this genius needed at least 1 source intact. Now he decides it's time to tell Anos what happened 2,000 years ago, because dumping a history lesson in the middle of a battle is apparently the way to go. He rants about humans being weak and betraying him, whining about how their actions made no sense. So, like any deranged mastermind, he decided to rewrite fate using his sacred sword, convinced that the only way to stop humans from seeking revenge was for Anos to wipe them out. His grand plan? Pretend to lose to the humans so the curse of Jura's hatred would end. Anos, who has no patience for nonsense, brings up the shell necklace and asks if he's really ready to abandon the girl waiting for him. But this melodramatic idiot is committed to his dumb plan, so he charges at Anos. Anos doesn't even bother moving, just flies up and bombards him with fireballs. This genius cuts through a few but still gets smacked out of the air, losing one of his sources. Instead of learning his lesson, he keeps going, only to get stabbed and lose another source. He pushes forward again, but Anos floods the area with a black sea, drowning him and wiping out another source. The guy barely cuts through the spell before getting impaled and losing his 6th source. He collapses, But in typical stubborn idiot fashion, he says he just needs to win once, summons another sword, and flails at Anos like a desperate toddler. Anos launches another massive attack, but this lunatic keeps slashing through it and finally stabs him in the heart. Anos smiles like he just saw a dog try to chase its tail and lets the barrier drop. The crowd, finally catching up, realizes that this mess of a fight means their hero actually managed to kill the almighty Demon King. Anos tells this clown to at least pretend to look heroic to calm the centuries-old hatred, then orders his army to stand down. Ray, exhausted but still annoyingly sentimental, declares the war over. Meanwhile, Diego, a man who clearly doesn't know when to quit, throws a tantrum and orders his troops to wipe out every demon. He screams that the only true peace is total extermination, because obviously, the best way to solve problems is to keep making them worse. Before his insanity spreads, Eleanor tries to stop him, but things are about to go from bad to worse. Hit the like and subscribe button and load the comments section if you want a recap of Season 2.